Welcome to Heat Up Your Retreats, the podcast where purpose meets planning and God-sized dreams come to life through transformational travel experiences. I'm your host, Amanda Heater, CEO of Across the Horizon Travel, retreat strategist, and passionate believer in using travel as a tool for impact. Whether you're a coach, pastor, wellness leader, or change maker, ready to lead your first or even your next retreat, you're in the right place. Let's turn your vision into a powerful, profitable, and spirit-led retreat experience. Let's heat things up together. Hi, friends. Welcome to Heat Up Your Retreats with Amanda Heater. I am your host, Amanda Heater, and today's episode is unlike anything I've ever recorded. I'm actually going to be opening up about my life, raw, unfiltered, and real. I'll be walking you through my story of brokenness, abuse, addiction, and loss. But most importantly, my story of redemption, healing, and the relentless love of Jesus Christ. If you've ever felt like you've gone too far, made too many mistakes, or that your story is too messy to be redeemed, I want to assure you, God hasn't given up on you. He never did with me, even when I had. Today, I share this testimony because I know He wants to do the same for you. Growing up in church was just part of life for me. My parents were strong in their faith and led by example. I learned early on about Jesus, salvation, and heaven. And at the age of 5, I asked my dad how I could make sure I would go to heaven and not hell. He explained the gospel and we prayed together. And I remember that moment so very clearly. It was pure, innocent, and so real. But life doesn't stay in that safe bubble. Not long after that commitment, darkness crept into my life in the form of childhood abuse. A boy, which was the son of a close family friend, touched me in ways that shattered my understanding of love, safety, and worth. It was very confusing for me. I knew Jesus loved me, but how could this happen? I carried that silent pain for years, and it became a lens through which I saw myself as broken, dirty, and ashamed. In high school, the pain began resurfacing in my behavior. I pushed boundaries, I lied, I snuck out, and I drank. I was craving validation. At the age of 17, I fell for a guy by the name of Ryan. He was charming, he was a little bit older than me, and he was everything I thought that I wanted. I snuck out constantly to be with him, and when my parents tried to intervene, I actually chose him over my parents. I moved out days before turning 18, convinced that I was chasing freedom, and that freedom very quickly vanished. I found out I was pregnant. I remember collapsing to the floor with a pregnancy test in my hand. I was in shock. I was scared. I ended up moving back in with my parents. And despite how much I had hurt them, they actually welcomed me back in with grace. When my daughter Michelle was born, I encountered unconditional love. Holding her for the very first time changed me, but it didn't erase all of my wounds. Trying to make things work, I moved back in with Ryan again, but he grew cold, distant, and very unfaithful. I was left alone daily with no car, no phone, no friends. I was isolated, lonely, and broke. He eventually left, and I was left to pick up the pieces. Then in came Billy. At first, he seemed different. But soon the yelling turned to shoving, the shoving turned to beatings. I was stuck in another cycle of pain. I had my son Braden with Billy, and while he brought light into my life, the darkness in our home continued to grow. Billy would get drunk, he would get angry, he would be violent. There were nights when he dragged me by my hair while my daughter screamed behind me. My kids were watching their mother be torn apart, and I felt utterly powerless. I begged my parents, who were actually living overseas at this time, to let me come stay with them. And they did. So I fled with my kids over to Europe, desperate to break free of the abuse cycle I was going through. But trauma doesn't just disappear. When I came back to the US, I tried to stand on my own. I moved between relatives' homes until I could get into low income housing for me and my kids. I was lonely, tired, and I felt numb. So I did what I knew. I went back to what was familiar. Billy came back into our lives. The abuse lessened, but was still there. I was worn down, and one night when I tried to defend a friend from Billy's rage, I was actually the one that was arrested. And that humiliation was another layer of pain that I had to carry. Eventually, I met Jerry. I thought this was my second chance. He was charming, funny, and we had a blast partying together. We drank, we smoked, we danced, but fun turns to chaos very quickly. Jerry began dealing drugs out of our home. First, it was marijuana, then pills, then cocaine, and then methamphetamine. And I joined him. I was snorting cocaine almost nightly just to cope. I became someone I didn't recognize. I screamed at my kids. I threw things. I was angry and I was so broken. Jerry and I got married thinking it would save the relationship, but he was so consumed by addiction and I was spiraling. He cheated. I confronted him. He lied and I broke. When COVID hit, his business shut down. I carried every financial burden and still he contributed nothing. Eventually, we were evicted. I packed up my life again and called my parents in Missouri. I was moving states, starting over again, only this time with absolutely nothing left. Moving in with my parents at that stage of my life was very humbling. They gave me rules. There was no drinking, no weed, curfews, church attendance was required. I felt like a teenager all over again, but that was honestly exactly what I needed. I cried the entire drive to Missouri. I was leaving behind my daughter, my home, and my sense of control. But I also knew deep down that this was God's rescue plan. At first, I wrestled. I returned to THC gummies and alcohol. I was still aching so badly. And one night, Jerry actually sent me a video of himself with another woman. And that was it for me. I filed for divorce. His only response when he was served the papers was thank you. That simple message closed a very dark chapter. The months that followed were filled with grief, but also healing. I rededicated my life to Christ. I joined a missions trip to Panama. I started reading God's word again and rebuilding my relationship with God. I saw his hand in everything. My daughter ended up moving back to Missouri with me, and we were rebuilding as a family. I gave up the substances. I chose sobriety. I chose peace. And most of all, I chose Jesus. Romans 8:28 became my anchor. And we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good for those who are called according to his purpose. That verse isn't just poetic, it's personal for me. It's my story. If you're listening and you feel stuck, hopeless, addicted, or even ashamed, I want you to know this. God sees you. He has not abandoned you. He is not done with you. If he can redeem my life, the broken girl, the single mom, the addict, the abused wife, he can redeem yours too. Your story isn't over. He's writing something beautiful. Thank you for allowing me to share the sacred part of my life. If this touched your heart, share it with someone who needs hope. And join me next time as we continue heating up the retreat God is calling us into. God bless you, my friends.
Thank you for tuning in to Heat Up Your Retreats. I hope today's episode sparked fresh inspiration and reminded you that your retreat vision is meant to be realized. Are you ready to take the next step? please send me an email at amanda@acrossthehorizontravel.com with the subject line of strategy session. And let's start building a transformational retreat that aligns with your mission. Be sure to follow, share, and leave a review so more leaders like you can heat things up too. Until next time, keep dreaming big, keep planning bold, and keep heating up your retreats.